Hey guys, Noire released today, so let's talk about how to play her. She evolves around two different mechanics. One is called Spotlight and the other is called Genius Idea. So, let's talk about Spotlight first. At the start of the round, inflicts Spotlight on the enemy with the highest current HP percentage for 1 round. Cool. Spotlight makes it so that if you attack the target that Spotlight is on, he receives one of the following statuses by random. It's either 1 stack of rigidity, which makes it so that if there are 2 stacks, the target is petrified. Or you inflict 2 stacks of poison or 5 stacks of burn. That's about that. So, additionally, whenever another unit is inflicted with Spotlight, you gain a Moxie and 2 stacks of Genius Idea. That means, let's say you have 4 enemies, and in the first round, Spotlight is applied to the enemy with the current highest HP. Now you attack that target to reduce his current HP percentage. Next round, the Spotlight goes then on to another enemy, because now the first target has taken damage and is not the enemy with the highest current HP percentage. It's now gonna be someone else, and therefore he also gets a Spotlight. If you attack him with Noire, he gets one of the following debuffs that we just talked about, right? And that mechanic of applying multiple Spotlights gives you 1 Moxie every single round the Spotlight rotates, and 2 stacks of Genius Idea. Now, Genius Idea, you have to stack this up to 10 times to make your ultimate hit twice guaranteed. More on that later though, because there is a math problem that we have to solve, especially concerning her portraits, which are really important. But more on that in a second. Let's now see how do you even accumulate these stacks of Genius Idea. That is by using your incantation number 1 called Stun Take. That is an attack incantation, and it simply deals damage and it gives you 4 stacks of Genius Idea. Now, of course, this attack triggers the added status effect from Spotlight as well, but that doesn't matter. What matters is you gain 4 stacks of Genius Idea. You need 10, so that would mean you need to cast this incantation 3 times in order for you to gain these 10 stacks of Genius Idea. But ranking this incantation up has a lot of value as you gain more stacks. For example, as we just talked about, on rank 1 you need to cast this 3 times to gain your 10 stacks of Genius Idea. But if you rank this up onto rank 2, for example, you gain 5 stacks, which means you would only need to use this attack twice if you use it twice on rank 2. If you rank this up all the way to rank 3, it gives you 6 stacks, which means you use this once on rank 3 and once on rank 2. Boom, you have 10 stacks, and that's about it. Her second incantation is also an attack incantation. It's called Experimental Montage, and what it does is it deals damage, and right before attacking you transfer all negative statuses, all debuffs from other enemies onto the current target. So you apply Spotlight to someone, you attack him, boom. Next round, someone else gets Spotlight, you attack him, boom, and that applies debuffs. And you can now transfer these debuffs onto the target, onto a different target, the one that you actually want all the debuffs on. And this is how to use this incantation. It simply deals damage and it transfers all the debuffs on the enemy side of the field to one target. But you have to keep in mind that this Spotlight mechanic and the Moxie generation only works on stages with multiple enemies. If you only have one target to fight, then Noire will face the issue of not being able to generate additional Moxie to herself. It's just a side note and something to keep in mind. Now, her ultimate, that is what Noire is pretty much all about, and that is where you have to solve a math issue, especially because of her portraits, and her portraits are really important, and we're gonna talk about that in just a second. So this is your big damage, right? You did a whole bunch of damage. If you are at 10 stacks of Genius Idea, you will use this ultimate even twice. She will cast it twice. And additionally, for every type on end stack of negative statuses, on debuffs, on a target, this attack gains a damage boost. And so What that leads to is you need to have 5 debuffs on the enemy. If stacks or different debuffs doesn't matter, 5 debuffs on the enemy to gain the maximum efficiency out of this ultimate. Since it's a mass attack, you want to see that if you have multiple enemies on the field, they are all inflicted each by 5 debuffs. Stacks or different debuffs doesn't matter, as I said. So that's about that. But now let's take a deeper look into this ultimate and into her portraits. Here we are. Let's take a quick look and solve the math issue that I was talking about. So first of all, for each stack of negative statuses, I just talked about 5 debuffs, right? Maximum damage. Additionally though, for each stack of Genius Insight, there is a 6% chance of casting this ultimate again. So you cast it once, and for each stack of Genius Insight, which you want to have 10, you gain a chance of 6% chance of casting this ultimate again. So at 10 stacks, that would be 60% chance of casting this ultimate again. But when Genius Insight reaches at least 8 stacks, which you will always have because you have 10 stacks, then this chance increases by an additional 40%. So 10 stacks of Genius Insight, each stack grants you 6% chance. That makes a total of 60%. If you now, since you reached 8 stacks, you gain an additional 40%, that's 100%. So at maximum stacks of Genius Insight, you will always cast this ultimate twice. Easy. Now, each repeated cast depletes 5 stacks of Genius Insight. That means you cast it once. Now you are at 10 stacks and at 100% chance to cast it again, so you cast it again. Now you lose 5 stacks. That means you are now left at a 30% chance of casting this ultimate again, because you have 5 stacks. That means 30% chance to cast it again, and you have to keep in mind that you are now not longer at 8 stacks, which means you lose this 40%. That leaves you, after 2 casts, with a 30% chance to cast your ultimate a 3rd time. And this is now where her portraits come in, because let's read it one by one. And spoiler alert, you need 3 portraits to be at a 100% chance to cast this ultimate 3 times. And this is how you would turn Noire into a top tier character and into an absolute berserker. So let's read them. The first portrait says, each stack of Genius Insight now grants a 10% chance of casting this ultimate again. No longer 6%, it is now 10. The amount of Genius Insight depleted after each repeated cast is now reduced to 4. And Genius Insight now can stack up to 12 times and not to just 10 times anymore. Okay, cool. Now we can go back to the ultimate and do the math one more time. So, for each stack of Genius Insight, there is now a 10% chance of casting this ultimate again. When at 8 stacks, we gain this 40% additional chance. Keep that in mind. And each cast now depletes 4 instead of 5. So, what that leads to is, we are now at 12 stacks of Genius Insight. And we have a 10% chance. That makes a total of 120% chance to cast this ultimate again. And we only deplete 4. Cool. Since we have an additional 40%, as we are not on 8 but on 12 stacks, we have an additional 40% chance to cast this ultimate again. That leaves us at 160% chance to cast this ultimate again. And now you can see, you cast this ultimate once, right? It is now 160% chance to cast this ultimate again. Cool. You lose 4 stacks. That means you are, first of all, left now at 8 stacks, which means you keep the 40%, and you are left at 120% chance to cast this ultimate again. That makes it that we cast this ultimate 100% guaranteed twice, which without Portrait 3, it's only 100% chance to cast it twice, and that is a massive, massive difference, needless to say. So let's go over this again. We cast this ultimate once. Now we have 160% chance to cast it again. Cool. We lose 4 stacks. We are now at 8 stacks and at 120% chance to cast it again. That means we cast it again. That's now 3 times. Now we are at an 80% chance. Right? No. Because now we don't have 8 stacks anymore, but we are now left at 4. That means we have a 40% chance to cast it a 4th time. But the whole point is that You cast this ultimate twice, guaranteed, if at full stacks of Genius Insight, and with her Portrait 3 you cast it 3 times. 100% guaranteed. Needless to say why this is such a huge difference, and why if you pull for Noire, you should gain her for Portrait 3. That is like recommended. That is how you turn Noire from a decently good character that is not recommended to pull for, because you would rather wait and pull for Recoleta. If you can get her to Portrait 3 though, that would open the door for you to completely skip Recoleta, because yeah, if you watched my previous video where I did the meta breakdown, you know exactly why. So that's about it, the video. I hope that was fun and informative. If you like Reverse1999 content in general, please consider leaving a follow on my channel. I would really appreciate that. But until next time, take care of yourselves, have a great day, and we love this game.